You look all alone. Oh.
We are waiting on a fifth member, so we have a quorum. I'd like to call to order the September City of Columbia Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to welcome all the Planning Commission members, staff, and guests. I would ask everyone to turn their cell phones and PDAs to the silent or vibrate mode. The clerk will now proceed with the roll call.
Mr. Stigemeyer? Mr. Cohn?
Here.
Mr. Dinkins?
Here.
Mr. James?
Here.
Oh, Miss James, sorry. Mr. McDuffie?
Here.
We have quorum.
I would like to take a few minutes to just briefly review the meeting format. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. The clerk has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. The consent agenda. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, then that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Clerk will now read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda today consists of the approval of the August 3rd, 2015 minutes, and then an annexation and comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendment for the north, east/south Spears Creek Church Road, which is in the Wood Creek Farms neighborhood, as well as item number 3, which is 4211 Divine Street for a request for site plan review.
Are there any commission members or guests today who wish to have any items on the consent agenda removed and placed on the regular agenda? Okay, if not, I'd like to have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
We need a second.
I need a second, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We will now proceed with the regular agenda. I would also like to remind everyone that when they come forward, to please state their name clearly before speaking.
The next agenda item is number 4, which is 875 Catawba Street and northeast-south Lincoln Street, and that item has been deferred.
Which one?
Number 4,
Is
875 Catawba Street has been deferred.
Okay.
The next item is 919 Catawba Street, 312 and 318 through 326 Lincoln Street, and this item has also been deferred, or request for deferral.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. I am once again Toby Ward, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for giving us the time to speak with you today. After consulting with my client, Aspen Heights, a student housing developer, and talking with a couple of the interested parties, we have elected to request deferral again. That would put us on your October 5th agenda. We have an associated item at number 7 on your agenda. We would request deferral of item 7 as well. The purpose of the deferral is to allow us to continue to discuss this matter with the interested parties in the area. We've had some fruitful dialogue thus far, and we think if you'll give us a little bit more time that we can address some other concerns, principally of safety with the student housing project and the location of some railroad in that area.
Okay. Are there
They've requested
Problems
deferral. There's no more action. We can move on to number 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6 on the regular agenda this evening is 3513 North Beltline Boulevard. It's a request for recommendation to rezone from the RS2 Single Family Residential District to the C1 Office and Institutional District. And you will note within, let me get myself caught up, staff has recommended denial on this particular one, and the reasons for that are outlined within the staff evaluation.
Okay. How are you?
I'm fine.
If you please state your name.
I'm Kathy Jordan, and I'm here on behalf of the owner of the property, and he's just requesting rezoning from an R2, I think it's RS2 to C1.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commission?
What's the purpose of request to change the zoning here?
At the moment, the property is pretty much surrounded by all commercial businesses across the street, both sides, down the street, and he is trying to sell the property, and it's not desirable as a single-family residence at the moment. And so he feels that it would be a little bit more desirable if it was zoned as commercial property and used as commercial.
So from what I'm seeing, does this back up to residential?
I don't think it backs up. When I looked at the back of the lot, there was nothing behind it. There's a child care center across the street from it. There's a construction company to the right of it. There's a single-family dwelling to the left of it. And, but it's just about on the corner of North Beltline, excuse me, and Two Notch Road. So it's pretty much almost in the heart of a commercial district now.
If the zoning map is actually on the screen at the moment for your review, and you'll see that the yellow is actually the RS single-family district, where the C1, that lighter pink color, is the C1, while the C3 is the two-notch corridor. And on the second slide, you will see the land use map, which was adopted back in March, and you'll see this particular area is the Urban Edge Residential 1 classification.
John, regarding the land use map, if this parcel was to be rezoned from RS1 to C1, would that be consistent with the future land use plan, UER1?
No, it wouldn't. That's why we're recommending denial. We're actually, we're trying to keep the integrity of that residential area rather than having the commercial move down Beltline in an eastward direction.
Understand.
John, from your recollection, are you aware of, is there any C1 C1 to the, away from the intersection of Beltline and Two Notch there on the other side? Doesn't look like it is there. It's all residential.
So it's residential going to the east, to the west is where the commercial is.
Right. So
Yep.
there's not a pocket of commercial to be heard to the east, it doesn't look like.
You have to go much farther down Beltline.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, when you say much further down Beltline, how much further are you talking about? Because there's a restaurant that is a couple blocks down. There are there's an insurance company, I believe it's Nationwide Insurance, that's also within a half mile.
Right, and so it's many blocks away. It would not be adjacent to.
Right, no, it's not adjacent.
Follow-up question. Have we heard anything from any neighbors, or if there's a neighborhood association that's had an address this one way or the other?
I have not, but Brian might have. Brian has not.
No.
So neither of us have heard from anyone in the neighborhood.
Any further questions for staff or the applicant? Thank you. In that, I'd like to get a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to deny the rezoning from RS2 to C1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is denied.
The next item on your agenda is a recommendation to City Council for an amendment to the private dormitory text. And that one, as you heard from the applicant on number 5, was requested to be deferred, so just for the record. And that would lead us to items 8 and 9 under other business. And we've put 2 items on there just to let you know what's occurring in there. We are this fall going to be starting the South Assembly Mill Village Area Plan. That is a joint project with Richland County, so we'll be looking at the Whaley, Granby, Olympia area, as well as the corridor of Assembly Street extending down towards Rosewood Drive. And we'll have more information for you about that, but there'll be a series of public meetings and the standard sort of items that we'll be talking about in those meetings for a neighborhood area plan. And the Number 9 is a People First Design Service project. It actually just sort of got kicked off today with some meetings with staff, and we have some stakeholder meetings this evening. This particular project is actually being funded by the Knight Foundation, and they have worked with the Central Carolina Community Foundation. They're the receiving agent for approximately services that are about $135,000. And what they're going to be providing the city is really looking at a fine-grained level of our public spaces and how to improve them and to also connect some of the good public spaces we have so that they link together. The area that's going to be looked at is essentially from the entrance of the Bull Street Development Campus down Main Street through the Vista and then the riverfront. And we will they will be back in towards the end of October with some public meetings. There'll be a lot of surveying, so we're going to be looking for a lot of volunteers to be spending some time out there surveying and looking at public spaces, how people are using the space. They'll be looking at whether someone's sitting or they're eating or they're playing or whatever they might be doing to actually understand how the spaces are actually being used so we can improve upon those. So I just wanted to let you know about those 2 projects. So that when you get the emails to participate and things like that, you're familiar with it.
Thank you. I wanted to ask one question before we adjourn. I know that the Catawba streets now have been deferred for a second time. Do we need to have any type of workshop on this one? I know this is a fairly...
Brian and I have met with regard to the applicants at 875 multiple times, and they're trying to understand what they want to particularly do with their particular project. And then, as Mr. Ward mentioned, for the 919 and the Lincoln Streets, I believe they've been having conversations with the neighborhood and the university, and so I've heard from all those sides. So we know those conversations are occurring, and I gather that they want a little bit more time to have those different parties continue that dialogue before they come back to you. So.
Okay. All right. If there's no other business, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. I was going to get my train of